Hi friends, welcome back to the channel, and this is your daily news. So, BRICS is a real thing, it seems. So this is BRICS. That would be Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They're looking to expand. So this is why I said it's a real thing. I was looking at this here. So it's going to be 19 countries they're looking at joining. That would include Saudi Arabia, UAE, or United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Kazakhstan, and they're also talking about some sort of common currency. So that's why I was saying this could be a real thing. I mean, already many people have been asking me about this, but I do think this is a legitimate challenge to the dollar and United States and slash West. I will say, if you're just looking at it, China is a major part of Asia, of course. In Asia, you guys know I live in Korea. Korea and Japan need to get closer, but they sort of have a past rivalry. And then also too, other parts of Asia, say Southeast Asia, Vietnam is not looks like does not considering joining or whatever. So I would say the U.S. would try to get Vietnam on sort of our side. Best way to put it. This is going to be interesting. Whether or not this is like a new Cold War kind of thing. Looks like most of the countries in Africa are not necessarily being considered, but I'm just looking at it and I consider joining, that is. In the past, when you had this sort of Cold War mentality that, you either choose the Russian side or the American side, that's what it was. And are we going back that way? This kind of situation, though, is I would say bigger in the sense that India, Brazil, right? These are major population bases and they're developing nations, so they can continue to grow. The U.S. economy is not like going to grow the same rate as like India or Vietnam, just for example. Russia, though, I would argue is in decline. So they're kind of a, how can I say, a weakness of the BRICS, in my opinion, especially with all the stuff Putin is doing, and that's kind of a challenge for them going forward. Because when you look at the thing I would say, like, out of the BRICS, like as of now would be like India and China are kind of like more your powerhouse. And Brazil, theoretically, they have the resources, they have the population, etc. So it's not a done deal that BRICS is gonna take over the world and the dollar is gonna sink. Nothing like that. But I'm just saying that it becomes legitimate when you have your own currency and start adding in additional nations, because China, India alone can pose a challenge, and I don't like to use particular words for example, because other channels or other news outlets may say that's a threat to the dollar, right? So I don't really want to say that kind of word, and you got to be careful with your language with these things. I'll just say it's a challenge, because there's no other way to put it. You have to be honest about that. And I was looking at this as well. OPEC, this is just a headline here. It says OPEC excludes some Wall Street Journal, Reuters, and Bloomberg reporters from a meeting. The basic gist of it is, in the USA, we have internal fights with Democrat and Republicans like that over debt ceiling, these kind of things. But given the USA with all its faults and this kind of stuff, I will still take freedom of the press, freedom of speech, this kind of stuff, right? Sort of the Western values over some of the other countries that maybe cut off media access, cut off freedom of speech, these kind of things. And how can I say, I would like the U.S. to be more independent from OPEC. And you guys know the last few days I've been driving around in a Tesla. I have to restate, I'm not a Tesla hater. I just think the stock is overvalued. But I do think the car is fun to drive, and I do think the future is going to be electric. And actually, it's really funny. My mom, she said, are all the new cars electric? And I said, not yet, but probably in the future they're going to be. And she's like, yeah, they're going to be. So, she doesn't know a lot about electric cars like that, but from riding around in it and seeing the technology that we have, she can see the future as well. I think we all can. And it is, once the infrastructure gets built out, it is certainly going to be a thing. So I'm all for electric, sooner the better. And but I am also well aware that electric vehicles isn't necessarily how can I say, what's the right word to say it? So even if we cut oil, we're still going to use energy, right? It's just different types. Does that mean we're building more dams, just for example? So do we have to, dam up all the water all of a sudden? And then we got a different problem we didn't even thought about, right? It's like dams everywhere. or we're gonna have windmills everywhere, etc. And then we're gonna have like whole fields of wind turbines and these kind of things, or is everyone in their house gonna have solar, just for example. And just imagine, I'm just talking about just in terms of like how big of changes will occur in society if we do adapt these kind of things. I think the big one, like I said, imagine everyone has solar everywhere, and something like you walk through your neighborhood and there's like reflective stuff everywhere, or maybe you're in a neighborhood and there's like a major tornado storm, you got all this stuff, new types of debris flying around, or maybe you're trying to build solar panels and the materials that you need to build said solar panels just skyrocket in price, etc. So I think anytime you have kind of a big changes, be it the BRICS, which we just talked about, say like another economic alternative to the dollar or the West, or you have an alternative cartel forms to sort of like ends up being like OPEC, and the alternative cartel would be all the materials and stuff like that needed to produce solar panels. I'm just giving you guys different examples. So because humans will always be human, our technology may change, but we're still going to be human, and we're still going to have these political dynamics. I mean, for example, I was just looking at this. As of now, it looks like they got some sort of debt ceiling deal in place or something like that. Who knows? I think it passed to see House approves deal struck by Biden and McCarthy. So okay, and now it's going to go to the Senate, I think. So I'm not really worried. I know if you watch other channels on YouTube, that the basic gist of it is they try to panic you that there's going to be no deal, news is going to fall apart. They're going to pass something, I'm sure. I always say they always wait to the final hour, that kind of thing. That seems what they seem to be doing here. And our system does function, but I will say with competition you want to try to function a little bit better, because now you're not the only game in town. And regarding, say, only game in town, just talking about a bit of news with you guys in the markets. This was a alarming story for those of you who are stockholders in Advanced Auto Parts. The stock went down. It was like 30-some% in a day, the lowest in 10 years. So if you bought the stock in, say, 2013, and you have the stock now, so again, this is Advanced Auto Parts, you are flat. So your entire investment just basically went flat. And they cut their dividend, which is not cool. They cut it, not cool for people who hold this thing. They cut it by more than 80, dividend slash, yeah, by more than 80%. So basically, they cut it down to near nothing. And this shows that it's tough out there. That's why you don't want to throw all your eggs in one basket. Some people are all about index fund, which is fine, because the basic gist of it is you don't have to stress out about worrying, which stock to do this, which stock is going to do that, etc. My advice is always have more than one thing, always have more than one class. And I think that's what sort of gets a lot of people. Many channels make it feel like out there that stocks are the only thing out there. I talk about CDs, I talk about bonds, I talk about this whole plain out cash, especially in this day and age, when savings accounts are paying like over 4%. And I'd be curious if any of you are getting like 5 and 6% guaranteed money just by having any kind of savings or CD. I'd just be curious, and you guys write in the comments about that. My point of view of these things is I think the future is still going to be a little bit shaky. You take a look at Macy's. They reported their earnings. I was just looking at this, and the headlines are Macy's slashes its full year outlook even as earnings beat, and that was pretty similar to Vans Auto. They're like saying this year doesn't look so great as well. The thing is with life. Is always take the sure things that you can, manage your risk, and hang out with this channel. And we got a great community, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the BRICS thing. Now that they're looking to add more members, maybe have a common currency, what do you think about, the future of BRICS, and what do you think about Russia in it? I mean, I don't think they can expel Russia, but, my opinion, generally speaking, as a country, you try to want to have friends with everyone, do business with everyone, etc. And Russia's kind of one of those countries like, well, they're kind of making us look bad, right? So we'll and I don't want to make light of anything of the Ukraine and stuff like that, and we shouldn't, because they're still fighting over there, and it is a serious thing. But I just want to say that I bet internally, country like, for example, like China would want the war to end as soon as possible. That's what I guess, but who knows what's going on in private conversations. Maybe China is trying to figure out ways to make money from this, but if China is trying to trade with everybody, you want to start conflict as soon as possible. So we'll see. That's been the daily news. Love to hear your thoughts on any one of these stories. I do appreciate everyone's time, and I'll catch you next video.